Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Pulse from Project Flux. I'm joined today with Yoshi. Hi Yoshi,
Hello, mate.
good to see you. It's a special day today, I believe.
I knew you were going to say it. Yeah, I've finally left my 20s behind, and I'm joining the 30s. Hopefully, this is the decade which is just right for me.
Well, a lot's going to happen this decade, but it is the start of 30s. It's the low slung crawl into middle age, mate. No, only joking. You're still a young man.
The thing
You
is,
wait to the
I enjoy doing things that people in their 30s do.
yeah. Yeah, so you should. And it's still young. But I think it's going to be really interesting for someone of your age going into your 30s about how much is going to change in the decade ahead for you. Like, it'd be really interesting if we're still doing this in 10 years' time to come back and look at what's changed as you approach your 40s. And me,
Yeah,
I'll be approaching my 60s.
yeah, you'll be as wise as Jeffrey Hinton, mate.
Jesus
I'll be
Christ, I
in for
don't
a
want to think
Nobel
about
Prize.
that. That's the aim, right? By this time, 10 years' time, you'll be still doing stuff in your 40s. I'll be working towards a Nobel Prize.
Well, I tell you what, we might not even be working in the next 10 years. Will we
Well,
still
we're
be
going to
doing
get
Flux?
Well, this isn't working, mate. This is fun. So if we're still doing Flux in 10 years' time because we've got nothing else to do because the robots have taken over for everything else, I think that'd be pretty cool. So I'm going to put a reminder in my diary after this for 10 years down the line. But
It'll be like pirate radio in Skynet.
absolutely. But listen, if anyone wants to wish Yoshi a happy birthday, you can get him at yoshi.projectflux.ai. I'm sure he'll welcome it. And we do have our own email addresses now. So I'm James at projectflux.ai. And we've also got info at projectflux.ai. And we have a website, which is, funnily enough, projectflux.ai. So do reach us out there. And in all seriousness, happy birthday, mate. It's been a pleasure doing this with you for the last year. Can you believe that this is a year that we've been doing the Project Flux podcast now?
Wow, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's a year. So this will be episode 52 that comes out on Friday. So it's
Not quite my age.
yeah, exactly. Milestones all round. Milestones all round. So let's get to business, right? Because things don't slow down just because it happens to be your birthday. And we got quite a lot to try and pack into the next sort of 20, 25 minutes. And we do try and keep these ones quite nice and short and sharp for listeners just to get what they need from the newsletter. The newsletter will be issued tomorrow if you want to find out more about it. But the big news that we're going with is, and everyone's playing with this has really captured the imagination, hasn't it? The ChatGPT has a new image generation feature. It's been using DALL-E for quite a while, and the image generation has been fairly naff compared to Midjourney. But they released this new image generation tool, and it's pretty good, isn't it?
It's better than pretty good. I mean, so I use Midjourney quite a bit, or I used Midjourney quite a bit because Midjourney, you were able to develop really distinct images of different art styles. So you could use these things called SREF codes, right? SREF codes, and you could effectively create any image you wanted using any different style. There were some anime styles in there, and you'll see the ones that I use with Flux. That's a specific SREF code.
Yeah, the red
But
stuff.
yeah, but it always struggled with accuracy. And the best way that I can kind of speak to GPT-4's image generation is it's the smallest gap between what you want the AI to create and what it actually creates.
Yeah, it's
I think
very
that's the
impressive.
point. Yeah, and even text, it handles text really well. It can place images really well. And I've done this in the newsletter. I actually did my example was, actually in the context of project delivery was if you've got a new person joining your team, your new project team, you can just create a Pokemon card of them and give them
Yeah,
their
that was
skills
a
and
really
ability
cool. That was really cool.
and then share it. I did it with ChatGPT. So you get like an anthropomorphic ChatGPT. But I wanted to showcase the ability to create using different styles, but then also edit with that. So I then asked ChatGPT, can you take this card and put it on the top of Mount Everest? Midjourney can't do that. Like it really struggles. The image won't be the same. This is the first time where we've had real continuity between images. So yeah, I mean, I was mentioning in terms of commercial uses, you can actually start to create books, comic book strips with accuracy, and that's been the game changer.
Yeah, and the fact that it handles text so well, because that was the real problem before. Well, it was text and then various digits in terms of
Mm.
extra fingers and extra hands coming. I haven't noticed any of that. This really feels like a game changer for being able to actually, if it felt like a bit of a gimmick, or you had to really compromise before with the image generation. This one feels really, really useful. So, for instance, you'll see on the newsletter, we've now got this new image that showcases the podcast. That's entirely generated with this. All we do is we put the podcast description into this image generator and ChatGPT, and it creates this lovely little graphic. So things like that are just going to become super, super easy for people, and it's going to allow people to actually use it rather than spend just as long trying to figure out the prompt than actually doing it, in Canva or something.
Yeah, and whilst it is impressive, it hasn't come, without its controversy. So everyone's been using the Studio Ghibli art style. I mean, that's been the most famous one.
Mm.
And lead animator, I think, and also co-founder of the studio, Miyazaki, wasn't too happy with AI back in 2016 when he was first showing it. I mean, in that context, I think it was a member of his team saying we managed to use AI to actually develop some new content. And he came back saying, I think he said he was disgusted. He said, "Don't show me this." And I
Really?
kind
That's
of get
pretty
it.
strong.
Yeah. And then so you fast forward to 2024, and I was actually writing this article last week, and I noted in the newsletter, "Oh, imagine what Miyazaki would think now." And then a day after, I got sent a cease and desist order from Studio Ghibli to OpenAI saying, "You've got to stop misappropriating our
Really?
brand." Yeah,
I
so they've
didn't
actually
know. I
set up
didn't know that
for.
happened. That's crazy.
So there was that. So I wonder if that art style might be cut off, and that will then have a consequence down the line.
Yeah.
There's also the problem of people don't like this, right? Because it kind of takes away
But if you're a
human
graphic designer,
authenticity. Well, this is it. So there's displacement, but in the news article, I kind of spoke to the fact that I think there will be technical job displacement because of this, right? There has to be.
inevitably. I mean, this really does. If you're looking for a graphic, and you're not precious, particularly about the artistic endeavor, this does the job like 90% of the time.
Yeah, and put it this way. So someone said, I think someone put a post with a thumbs down to AI generated art and a thumbs up for human art, and I thought amazing, right? Cool. And I
Yeah.
actually agree with the part about using art. I think that human made art shows us experience, it shows us culture, it shows us the intangibles, right? People are thinking, there's emotional resonance, is kind of what I mentioned in.
Yeah.
But if I wanted to say, right, I want to create a picture of a robot with the Flux theme, put it into a time warp, and then, have it shaking hands with Elon Musk, my budget is £0. Create that. Where am I going to go to get that created?
Fiverr. It used to be Fiverr. So those are the guys that'll be immediately impacted because that was always pretty low quality stuff, and then you get that free. So it's crazy, really. And I find interesting about all these things, and we'll talk about a few others today, is when there's a barrier that comes up, like let's say, take this example, someone will say image generation, yeah, I used it, it's crap and it doesn't work with text and it's unrealistic. How long does it take? Maybe a few months for them to overcome that barrier. The barriers are constantly being broken in the AI field, so that's why you have to stay ahead. And the people that I find most of the detractors will use the excuse, let's talk about it in the project field, right? They'll use the excuse that I used this particular tool once, ChatGPT, Midjourney, whatever it may be, and it wasn't very good for whatever reason. Now, that's probably true. It might be true. There were issues, but given how fast they seem to be dealing with these challenges, you can't afford to take your eye off the ball.
Yeah, and you touched on it last week where you said today's AI will be the worst you use, and that's
That's
true, right?
true. Yeah.
It's like when the wheel came about and someone showed everyone, here's the wheel. We can do so much with this. Yeah, but it can't actually do anything yet. Because you weren't foreseeing the fact in the future you'd have four wheels which gave you a car. Do you see what I'm saying? So there's these things that we actually don't think about where there's utility because we haven't been there. It's unfamiliar to
Well,
us.
think about the iPhone, right? I mean, it wasn't until the App Store was launched that it really took off. And then you had the killer apps, which gave it a purpose. Technology in itself is never going to be the enabler. Well, it is the enabler. It's never going to be the thing that creates mass adoption. It is always the consequence of the technology. So what we're seeing now with AI, I think we've seen the last few years where the technology has been there. And for a lot of people, they haven't adopted it because the consequence of that technology hasn't taken off. And now it's starting to, I'm seeing this year, now it's started to, because you've got tools like this. You've got tools like Replit. You've got tools like Lovable where you can spin up an app in a few seconds. So it's really
The
good. But
barriers to
this is
entry are a lot lower.
barriers to entry are almost zero now. It's
But there's one
almost
problem
zero.
though. There's another problem within this space, two actually, and one of them is around sustainability. So environmental sustainability is taking a huge hit because of the
Well, I saw
popularity of
Sam Altman's LinkedIn post or whatever it was tweet saying, "But can you see our servers are melting, right?
yeah, our GPUs are melting, and it's true.
GPUs are melting."
People are working later, and Paul Graham had to come back saying, why? Why do you need people back in the office to fix it? Because obviously the demand has been overwhelming. I think more so than anything they've released, and it shows. This
Why is
shows
that? Why does this capture the imagination?
because it's human creativity and it's just visually appealing. And again, I touched on this in the blog. I'm like, why don't we just incorporate this into our daily lives, into our daily workings? Like, just make projects much more visually appealing. If you're going to have tasks, have some cool image design which kind of visualizes that to your stakeholders, to your team. There should be more to be done. But the problem around the environmental sustainability element and the fact that GPUs are melting and it's compute intensive, people would argue OpenAI showed their true colors that they are becoming a much more of a business consumer faced product as opposed to being aligned with their initial ethos, which was to reach AGI, because they could be using this, they could be using the compute they have to build things which will actually solve real world problems, right? Nuclear
Yeah,
fusion, for instance, solving cancer, all of these different elements. I know it might just be a byproduct, but the virality of it is what is going to, people are going to latch onto, and OpenAI will see that. Because remember, their AGI criteria is the first thing to make 1 million something, $1 million.
yeah, yeah. So
So there's
it,
that. There's that
it is a
controversy as
shame,
well.
especially when you take it into account with what's happening with the open source models of the deep seeks and the llamas.
But I would say, James, one more thing, and I mentioned this around the art element is you wouldn't buy a fake Rolex, and if you do buy a
I
fake
did,
Rolex, you're not going to.
I did. But anyway,
When
that's a different story.
when you buy a fake Rolex, right, you're not going to attach the same level of value to it, right, and sentiment.
No, no.
You're not going to.
But I think when you buy a fake watch or something, you realize that it's there as a cosmetic thing rather than a piece of value.
Exactly. So when you're looking at AI art, I think it will still have this distinction.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good point. But you talk about OpenAI really sort of becoming quite a non-open for-profit company. So let's move on to the next story, which is, well, I'm going to jump around a bit actually. I'm going to talk about Gemini because Google, don't forget, Google invented the transformer, and Google are always in the game, and they are really, after a pretty slow start, let's be honest with, what was it called, Bard back in the day, they
Yeah.
they are upping the ante now, and
Yes.
they're becoming pretty irresistible because the latest version, they've just released a new model called Gemini 2.5 Pro, and I don't know if it's number one on all benchmarks, but it is performing pretty well, isn't it, in terms of their nearest competitors. But some of the key details are that it's miles ahead on its token limit. So tokens, think of a token as a word effectively. It's got a 1 million token context window, which is huge, which basically means
Mm.
for people in project delivery, you can just put whatever you want in. I mean, that becomes almost limitless in terms of what you're able to do. It's also got audio input and transcription, which is pretty cool because if you were using a different tool for transcription before, you now got that within Google. It understands images as well, which again is just keeping that up to date. I haven't tried that actually, so it'd be interesting to see how it performs, and no doubt it's going to now have to keep up with OpenAI on the image generation, and it's got smarter code generation. I think it's between those two now, them and 3.7, Sonnet 3.7 on the code generation, and again enhanced reasoning. So just again resetting the benchmarks. I've actually got it because I've got Google One at the moment, which is the platform that it comes with, because I've got a free trial of it. It is pretty impressive. I've got to say, I'm finding myself coming to it more and more.
The main thing that I judge these models on is their readability and their
Mm.
outputs, right? This is why I've always liked DeepSeek, but GPT 4.5 has really impressed me. What's the sort of vibe you're getting back when you're seeing the outputs? Is it
It's a little bit
fluid?
more technical. It's a little bit more. If I was to rank the three, let's leave Grok aside for a minute. If I was to rank the three main models, I'd call Claude the most personable. GPT's, especially the new, they've done a tweak to 4.0, so it seems to be performing pretty well now.
Yeah.
And this one, I think Gemini seems to be the more corporate-like, if you know what I
This is what I
mean.
was going to say. It sounds more
Yeah,
these features itself, right? Multimodality,
yeah.
SVG creation, so things can scale up and down. In terms of code, I've seen people build front ends front end code of applications, and it looks better than 3.5. So I think that was it. Someone recreated the ChatGPT interface using Claude 3.7 Sonnet and Google 2.5, Gemini 2.5, and it was better.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then, like you said, the 1 million token context window is perfect for businesses.
Yeah.
Literally,
And
because the fact that you can put any project documentation in, it will capture and process all of that context, making it less likely to hallucinate in that instance as well, right? Because it can understand better and follow through information. It does sound like this is the corporate tool.
yeah, but it's weird though, isn't it? Because of one of our other stories. So, it's like ChatGPT is meant to be more aligned with Microsoft. And then so if you're a Google house, you use Gemini and it's built into the workplace. So if you use Docs or Sheets, it's built into that and it's really handy. Whereas if you use Microsoft, you kind of go to Copilot, which I think is powered by OpenAI. So then what's weird, right, is if we come to another story where we talk about productivity, OpenAI then released the fact that if you on their Teams level, so there's 3 levels to OpenAI. Well, 3 or 4. Anyway,
I think it's free.
you got the free one, you got the enterprise one, you got Pro is for the $200 a month, and then there's one in between those two, which is Teams. So if you don't want to go full enterprise, you can get a version which is Teams, which is a little bit more corporate. It doesn't train their model on it. It retains some security, etc., etc. Anyway, the reason I'm saying that is because that model or that tier now connects to Google Drive. So it can now learn and it can integrate through your Google Drive. So if you're a Google company, you can live in that environment. It can learn from all your docs, your sheets, your slides. That's what they call Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc.
Well, they're
Which is
saying
weird,
CRM.
given what we've just said. That's weird, isn't it? That OpenAI seem to be straddling 2 horses in that
But
they're
I think
obviously.
there's one explanation for it, and it's the whole moat situation. Because
Yeah,
there's no moat, they need to be able to grow their user bases, and just making it easy for the user to use their tools is the bottom line. Like that's what they need to do. So closing people out because they don't operate within Microsoft. I mean, and newer companies, tech companies, people that I know typically would rather use Google than Microsoft anyway. So if
yeah.
they don't introduce that, it then closes off a lot of their target audience.
But if I'm Microsoft, right, and I'm funding, I'm a big investor in you, there must be some conversations going on and go about, hang on, we need some kind of leverage here for our investment. And you're giving it to one of our main competitors, if not our main competitor. So I just find it weird.
Yeah, I think it's because OpenAI is still the foundational model that Microsoft use, right? So I think it goes both ways, and there are other
So
functionalities.
they've got the leverage. They can say, well, we'll do what we want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I think that's really useful, and we use Google Workspace, so we can sort of start tapping into that, which is pretty cool. But it's just these. Sometimes you get these big news items like the image generations, and sometimes you get these little ones. And it may not sound like a huge thing with this ChatGPT now connecting to Google Drive, but if you are a Google house, it's massive, really.
It is. And just on the Chat GPT part, because you did touch on this with GPT 4.0,
Hmm.
something's happened because it is so much better. Like
They've
GPT
tweaked it.
4
They've
as a
said they've
standard
tweaked
model
it.
has improved significantly. The
Yeah.
information it gives back, its thought around solving problems, and the information that it pulls seem a lot more, well, they just seem better.
Is this because of the inference? Because they've run out of data to train it on. So I'm assuming this is the inference stuff. I'm assuming the inference also helps the non-reasoning models. I
Or
don't know.
maybe it might, well, they've
Yeah,
done something and it's definitely worked. So maybe it's
yeah,
new data, synthetic data, or what, but the model performs well, which is good news for the listeners, right? Because the default model for ChatGPT is GPT.
yeah. Before I find myself using that more and more. I am really looking forward to when they do away with this, having to choose what model you want, because have you ever come across it where you're doing a task and you're not quite sure what it should use, and then you think, oh, I wish I'd use the other model now.
Yeah.
So they need to, for usability, they need to make it really, really simple.
Mhm.
But I was also playing with Claude as well, and the Claude's now got the web search that we discussed last week. So they're all improving, they're all improving all the time, and you can't afford to sort of take your eye off the ball. You've got to keep trying all of them. So no, that's kind of the big stories. The other one I wanted to cover, mate, was on the project news. We got a really nice little article from Forecast that talks about the top 10 AI project management tools, which we won't go into in too much detail here because it's something you really got to read. A lot of the tools we've covered before, and a lot of the tools people will be familiar with, the likes of Notion and Smartsheet and Trello. But the one I wanted to talk about, simply because we had him on the podcast last week, was we had Alan Mosca from Nplan, and Nplan have now got their AI scheduling tool available for open beta, which I've signed up for. I don't think I've got access yet. I don't know whether you've had a chance to play with it at all. Yeah, so hopefully as soon as that comes through, but we've got the link in the newsletter. If anyone in the project delivery space wants to create a schedule by using natural language, like a ChatGPT for scheduling, that link's in the newsletter. So go to that as soon as you can and have a play with it and let those guys know how you find it. Because I think with all these things, it's all about feedback, isn't it?
It's interesting. Just covering the whole project management software ecosystem. I've actually not heard many people talk about it such as it used to. I used to hear Asana, ClickUp, P6, all of these things mentioned all the time, Trello mentioned all the time. And now it seems that people are just using existing models, right, foundational models, to either build their own or connect into it. I feel like it's been a space that I haven't really touched on in a while about project management software, and I do wonder how those things will evolve. So, for instance, with Mplan, right, they are growing their features. They have generative AI elements to it, the schedule itself. I do wonder if you could start to then there'll be more generalization of these project management software tools as opposed to more verticality.
So do you think it's going to make some of them redundant? Because you can just, I was talking about this, funny enough, earlier today, the fact that more and more companies are spinning up so-called AI companies when all they're really doing is providing a prompt to an existing foundational model and putting a nice UI on it. That's effectively what a lot of companies are doing.
Well, yeah, because you're looking at, so I'm seeing Monday.com, Zoho, Notion's slightly different, but then you have Asana.
Notion's cool. I do like Notion.
But they're like, it is effectively the wrapper and the way they service their tool, right? I just
As
feel
long as they do it well, right? As long as they're offering, we talked about this with Alan last week, didn't we? As long as they're offering something different and they're solving a pain point that you got, because if it's easier or cheaper, one or the other, I think, definitely if both, to just do it in ChatGPT, no one's going to use that tool.
and like you said, if you have 3.7 Sonnet and these tools which can help you code up a project planning tool itself off the bat, using Replay or Lovable or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just stick to that because that would be more tailored to your use case and it's probably going to come a lot cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
So I do start to question the moat around some of these PM tools if they don't offer predictive scheduling, predictive cost estimation, predictive risk. I feel like they'll fall short because of that. And you think they would have
Yeah.
had some of that, right?
Well,
Like
there's got to be a condense, they've got to condense. There's too many of them for a start.
there's too many. It's heavily saturated. I mean, I
Yeah.
look at the list. I'm like, which one do I go to? The only one that sticks out for me is Notion because I've used it and you can do a lot more. But other people have developed open source versions of it.
Yeah. No, Notion I do like. It does do something different from the others because you effectively got your own little, I call it my own little intranet.
Mm.
So I've got everything in my life there, both
Yeah.
personal and work. The other one that is different, and we've discussed it before, and we really want to get these guys onto the podcast, but they haven't accepted our invite yet, but is Motion. So you've got Notion and you've got Motion. Motion is different because it's the only one I know that does this, uses AI to automate your schedules, like your daily schedules, and I use that and I love it. Although I did note that Dropbox have released something saying they do it. I'm not sure if it's exactly the same. So
Wow.
all these things do have a bit of a shelf life, but yeah, it's worth looking into these things anyway. I think with it, I think you shouldn't get too hung up with it. You should just find a tool that works for you and stick to it, because
Yeah.
otherwise you
I
just
think give
drive
things
yourself crazy.
give things a bit of ramen before you keep jumping ship. I mean, it's easier with the LLMs, but with other tools, we have to have some learning curve where you don't just have a chatbot and you can
Yeah,
start.
no, I'm not for the LLMs. You've got to, I think, try them all out. Yeah, that's like just good practice because they've all got strengths. I'm talking about a sort of project management AI
Yeah.
tool. I think you can wrap yourself up in knots trying to find the best one and migrating over and over again. And I think it's quite a good thing to migrate every now and again. I recently migrated from facile things to Motion, and that was a good thing to do because it kind of cleared everything and gave me a clear
Mm.
start. But it was a real faff, to do it. So it's not something you want to do all the time because you'll never get anywhere. Cool. The only other thing I want to cover, so we got in the tips of the week, I want a big shout out to a friend of ours, Lawrence Rowland. We love Lawrence. Lawrence, if you don't follow him, he's awesome because what he does is he does walkthroughs, follow throughs on LinkedIn, and he's got access to everything, I think, but he's definitely got access to GPT Pro, and he's also been given access to Operator, which we covered a while ago. So I've got access to Manus, and I've been playing with that, which I love. He's got access to Operator, but he put a really, really good one up. So I've put a link to his LinkedIn showcasing like an early use of the Operator agent. And what he did was really cool, actually. So he showed how you can use Operator to use all these other tools to create it in a stack. So he, for instance, he asked Claude to set up a project and then wrote that in Google Docs, and then he got a project mandate from Claude. Then he created a project in the project features in ChatGPT, and you saw all these tools working together, all from a prompt through Operator, which was really, really good. So thank you, Lawrence. Keep doing your stuff. It's really, really cool. Did you watch it, Yoshi?
I've not watched it, but I will watch it. I mean, I'm looking at the different steps. Yeah, he does use all the different softwares to showcase. And he also mentions that he's how to download Google Docs into ChatGPT's file upload. So I guess he's also
Yeah.
then using the new features. One thing I also want to cover, James, is so I wrote a blog.
Oh, yes, yes.
I wrote a
Well,
blog recently.
let's talk about that now. So thanks, Lawrence. Keep up the great work with that. But let's talk about your blog.
So yeah, so I was using OpenAI O1 last week, and I asked it the question, "What is the single most profound thing you know?" And it replied with, "The most profound thing I know is that we are all in a constant state of learning and growth. Our understanding of ourselves, others, and the universe is ever evolving. That realization can be humbling, inspiring, and a source of endless curiosity." Now, I read that and I find it really weird because AI always refers to we when speaking about humans, and it somehow views itself synonymously with us, right? And in the blog, I kind of
It does it though. I've noticed it's definitely differentiating, like calling it us and you. So I don't think that's universal.
so this is the thing that I want to try, but I keep having it, and I had that with DeepSeek, and I had it with OpenAI, and I know part of this is programmed, but when I speak in this blog, I kind of talk about AI's control paradox, and effectively, I look at not every single, but every main revolution that came before the AI information age, and they had one thing in common, right, and that was the idea of control. We always want control of our surroundings. When it was the agricultural revolution, we were able to not be dictated by the environment around us. We were able to start to cultivate fields,
Yeah,
understand the soil, the flora, the
yeah,
flora, the fauna, all these different things. Same thing as we move forward to the scientific revolution, we found ways to study,
hmm
find empirical knowledge, and so forth. The difference that I found with the AI information age is that the idea of control is a paradox.
Well, it's the opposite. Whilst all these other revolutions have given us the idea of more control, actually, what this is doing is taking control away from us to
Exactly.
a large extent.
Yeah, and that's I think is what scares people. People mention displacement and all these things, but it's fear, and fear comes from uncertainty, right? Anxiety comes from uncertainty. So in it, I kind of speak to the fact that the fact that AI uses the word we and it uses the word our, there's a sense of comfort in it. There's a sense that in this age it will co-evolve with us. And even though this is a black box where we might not understand its true agenda or its thought, there's a level of dependency, or what I said, symbiosis, right?
But is it? I mean, that's the thing. Is it an extension of us? I mean, I know we're getting pretty deep here for a project orientated, but it's important to talk about these things as well because what we do for our work is part of our lives, right? And we need to understand how these technologies is. I love the blog because it does get you thinking.
Yeah, it gets you thinking, and there's a silver lining in it. Like what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to reframe the fact that people are scared because we might lose control. But I think there's hope in having another species or something which will hold our hand in times when we need it. I talk about population.
Is it another species or is it an extension of us? Is it like Jeffrey? Was it Jeffrey Hinton? Oh no, sorry, Ray Kurzweil said we're just going to merge.
Yeah, but even still, it's something which will help us do more than before, and it will
Mm.
take a lot of the load off. People are upset. People aren't happy, right? I think it was the UK had the lowest happiness recordings or something ever that I saw the other day, or for a long time. And then we have this opportunity where we might not have to work. We can achieve better thing.
Or we can work on what we want to. I think
All that.
we need purpose in our lives to have a sense of meaning, right? But the ability, I think why people are not happy is because they're spending time doing things they don't want to do. So the great
Exactly.
promise of AI is it will enable us to do the things we want to do, whether that's the creative arts, whether that's spending time with family, whether it's, I think you'll find happiness increases, but there has to be a sense of purpose still. As a species, we need a sense of purpose.
Sense of purpose. But my argument is there are too many people who are scared who then have this dystopian or defeated mindset with AI. And if we go into this age with that mindset, we're only going to see the negatives. So I think we
You're
have to
always
have
going to get that. You're always going to get some people who it's very hard to visualize these things. I mean, we're talking about, many years down the line. It's hard enough getting people to think about what's happening next week with this technology, never mind about talk, it gets very, very difficult. So it's important to raise the subject, which I'm glad you did the podcast, but I think it's only natural that you're going to have some detractors.
yeah, but just saying every revolution was for the betterment of mankind, right? And this one should be no different.
Yeah, and we need some help right now. Like, really, we do. So let's hope. I mean, it might be famous last words. Well, we're going to come back to this episode in 10 years, aren't we, on your 40th? So we'll see how things have changed.
Exactly.
I'm definitely going to put that calendar reminder in my calendar now.
Yeah, do it. But the full
Yeah.
blog is on the site. So anyone who wants to read it, it's not as long as my last essay, right? That was a lot longer. This you can read in about 5 minutes. But I thought it was quite interesting for people to look at what's happened before and how that might inform this revolution.
Yeah, so you can get the blog. So the blog's on the newsletter, but you can also get it directly from projectflux.ai because we've got a blog feature on there now. And you'll keep an eye on the website because we'll be putting a lot more features in there in the future. We've got some pretty exciting announcements to tell you about too. I know we've gone a bit over. Anything else you wanted to cover, Yoshi, or shall I let you get away and celebrate your birthday?
Just that, mate. Nothing else.
Yeah, just that. Awesome. Okay, well, happy birthday, mate. Thanks for coming on. And to all the listeners, as normal, we'll be back on Friday with our Spotlight series, a newsletter out tomorrow. Well, actually, this podcast is going out Wednesday, so the newsletter will come out yesterday. Got to get my dates right. And we'll see everyone next week. Take care.